At the recent South by Southwest Film Festival in Austin, Texas, one documentary told the story of the last human being to stand on the moon, and that was U.S. astronaut Eugene Cernan. It's now been 42 years since he returned from that trip, and he is not happy that no one else has gone since.
And Cernan advocates a more vigorous space program, a vision he shared with VOA Houston correspondent Greg Flakus. On assignment's Rebecca WardÂ caught up with Greg to chat about it.
The Last Man on the Moon is the name of the film, and it's a pretty apt description. Tell me about the film storyline.
Well, Rebecca, the film is about the last man to actually walk on the surface of the moon, Eugene Cernan, who was the commander of Apollo 17. Now, this mission took place in December of 1972.
We have ignition.
In 1972, Captain Eugene Cernan and two fellow astronauts began what would become the last mission to the moon, Apollo 17. On December 14, 1972, after scratching his daughter's initials in the lunar dust and setting up a remote camera, he stepped into the lunar lander and left the moon.
Ignition. Right away, Houston. Vector grid.
And not only has no one returned to the moon since then, no astronaut has gone beyond low Earth orbit. When he was there, he assumed that at some point somebody would be coming back there to the moon, that some future mission would arrive there. But now it's been more than 42 years, and people have been born and gone into middle age in that time, and no one has returned there.
So this must have been something of a labor of love for him. What does he hope that the film, or what kind of message does he hope the film conveys, especially to those born after 1972?
Well, Eugene Cernan, like many of the former astronauts, really would like to see this program invigorated. He would like to see more ambitious goals, and he would like to have young people today dreaming of doing something like he did. And so he's really pushing for more education and a bigger program, something that could give kids something to aspire to.
Would I go back in a half a second?
So getting back to Cernan, and he's, here he is, this astronaut, basically he's done something really amazing. But he also seems to be in the film just kind of a regular guy. You see him joking around with his buddies. So tell me about this regular guy.
Well, having met him, I can tell you he really is a regular guy. If you ran into him at the rodeo or at the, the local grocery store even, you would just think of him just as an ordinary fellow. You would never imagine that he's someone who's done this incredible thing. They bring out a lot of it by having an old buddy of his, Fred Baldwin, Baldy Baldwin, in the film with him out in his ranch and going around with him, riding horses and that kind of thing. And Baldwin, in the typical way men joke with each other, he's always kind of kidding him and joking with him about things. And you can see the camaraderie there and, the respect they have for each other. And I caught up with Baldwin after the screening. He came out in his big cowboy hat, and I spotted him and asked him a few questions.
He's one of the finest aviators that I've ever been around. But he and I used to fly wing in a diamond formation and that, but super guy.
Well, you sound like you're a bit of a space buff, Greg, yourself. So how was it meeting, an astronaut?
Well, yeah, I've met others like Buzz Aldrin and some of the people who've been on the space shuttle missions. But to meet the man who was the last person to actually go on a moon mission and actually walk on the surface of the moon was really interesting. And to hear his perspective on things, although he is disappointed in the way things have turned out and would like to see a bigger and more vigorous space program.
Am I disappointed today where we are? Of course I am. It's devastating to be in a position. 42 years ago, I was walking on a moon. In the 60s and 70s, we were sending human beings to the moon every 2 months, to the moon. And today we can't even get an American in space on American hardware to our own space station. But what goes around will come around. And I do believe that in a lifetime of many of you out there, certainly most of you, you'll see us go back to the moon.
go back to the moon, and maybe take a trip to Mars, which is in the works. Thanks so much to Eugene, Greg, and Rebecca for that story.